Yeah, it was a very interesting January transfer window, even though we did not get fireworks like recent windows. But, clubs were active here and there. Some clubs tried to do business to their disappointment. Some clubs got some signings they needed, and it is mixed feelings all over the place. But let's start with the most obvious question from the January transfer window, Victor. In your opinion, which transfers do you think are the best of the January window in any order at all?
I think I'm going to be singing Villa's praises a little bit here.
Mm.
So I think Rashford will have a great time with them, much like how Lingard did a couple of seasons ago at West Ham.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not denying that maybe he wasn't impressive in training when Amorim came in, but this seems like Amorim's ego getting a bit in the way. Seems a bit like a Mourinho type tactic, just clash heads with one star to try to bring everybody else in line in the squad. It might backfire, but I think it might just revive Rashford's career. Apart from him, I'm also liking Villa's move for Daniel Malen, and I also think Chilwell will probably benefit for a lower pressure environment at Palace. As for Manchester City, we've already seen Omar Marmoush at work a little bit. He seems like a good fit, but it's hard to say at the moment for City what success might look like this season and how much he can contribute to that, if significantly.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. And for you, Max, do you share the same sentiments? What are some of your best transfers?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking of two players as well. Uh, I'd say first one would be Rashford to Aston Villa and Marmoush to Man City because Holland was a bit poor last time, so now he has second best striker in the league. So he probably would play even better, and also Marmoush is playing so good because he was top scorer in Bundesliga for a long time. So yeah, I think these two transfers were the best.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. And so the next question is probably going to step on a bit of toes a bit, but it is my opinion anyways. Anybody is allowed to challenge it, but an opinion is an opinion regardless. And if you tell me that Guardiola is one of the best managers to have graced the sport and whatnot, I'm probably not gonna argue about that because the facts are there, his trophies and all of that. But I remain on the standpoint personally that he is a checkbook manager. If you check all the clubs he has managed clubs with a fat transfer kitty. Bayern Munich, Barcelona at the time, and now Manchester City. I don't think Guardiola can manage a club where he has to be prudent on resources. I don't think he can do what Ancelotti did, like go to Everton and just test the waters and see. I don't think so. Or like a Mourinho at Porto and whatnot. I don't think so. And which brings me to the next question. City, once again, they suffered a minor blip in their season, and then Guardiola is splashing the cash all over again in January. 200 million, almost 200 million pounds, 180 million pounds is what some clubs will spend in 2 to 3 transfer windows, and City have splashed it in one January window. Victor, do you think this signings actually improved any of City's weaknesses at the moment, or was it more like a panic and desperate buy?
Rather the second option.
Mm.
Look, they have Nico Gonzalez, came in from Porto. It was about 50 million pounds. I'm not too sure he fits the Rodri profile. That team is extremely dependent on a properly dominant defensive midfielder that knows what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Whether Gonzalez does that, it's hard to say. As I've mentioned to you privately before, I'll bring this up again. Portuguese clubs are tough to deal with. They tend to stick to the release clauses. It's probably one of the reasons why he ended up costing as much as he did. If you don't believe me, look at Liverpool's dealing with Benfica for Darwin Nunez. I think that he maybe won't flop, but I don't think he will impress that much. Apart from him, Marmoush. might do some nice things in attack. But apart from these, I'm really having doubts about City's window. It's hard to expect someone like Vitor Reis, okay, 19 years old, hasn't played outside of Brazil, has 18 senior appearances, 18, and he was bought for around 30 million pounds
Yeah.
mid-season, come in, hit the ground running. Then again, it could be one of those situations that City wanted to bring him in the summer. They had to bring it forward because other clubs were sniffing around. Still, 30 million pounds for a player of that profile in January kind of stinks of bad business to me.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I agree with almost everything you said, to be fair. But yeah, moving on. This one is for you, Max. We've already touched on Aston Villa's transfer business so far, but can you just rate their transfer business from 1 to 10, which is from bad to good?
Yeah, so they sold a lot of players for good money. They signed them the other players for these positions for free for now, and they have buyout clause for them. So I said they signed even better players than they sold. So I'd say it's a solid 8 for me.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and now that we've spoken about probably the biggest winners of the transfer window, Aston Villa, let's talk about the losers in quotes. And if there was any need that was apparent, it was Arsenal and their need to sign a striker. Now the window is over, and Arsenal did not get any striker. They made a late move for Watkins, which was silly in my opinion, if you ask me. But looking at everything, Victor, do you think Arsenal are the biggest losers of the transfer window?
Probably, yeah. Um, I remember texting you during the Arsenal against City game about Havertz's chance, 0.77 xg, and yeah, it was a staggering miss. Sure, stuff like this happens to the best of them, right? But it's happening a bit too often for him. Jesus is out injured. Saka is out injured. I know Saka is not a striker, but in this context, it's still significant. We've said before the January window is usually challenging, so I can understand that maybe Sporting said no to sending Gyökeres to Arsenal for pretty much whatever price. Newcastle would have had to be suicidal to sell Isak right now, where they're still chasing the Champions League. But why not at least look at someone maybe on loan? There are clubs that don't have this much riding on the season anymore. If you look at Stuttgart, for instance, they're out of the Champions League. Dennis Undav would have been a good sort of papering over the cracks loan. He's got Premier League experience, such as Ayoze Perez, for instance, from Villarreal. I'm sure he wouldn't have broken the bank either. It's just a bit disappointing that they just dropped the ball on this. I find they don't have a striker that is even close to being good enough, even with Jesus fit. And I know this might ruffle a few feathers, but Jesus is no longer, if he has ever been really, no longer a top level Prem striker.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with that one. He's not, to be honest. But yeah, and just on a final note, Victor. So clubs in general, aside City, Aston Villa, and Chelsea that did a couple sales, clubs were not as active as the usual January transfer window. In your opinion, what do you think could have been the cause for that?
I feel like it's been a steady decline for the January window in recent memory. It's very difficult for clubs to convince other sides to just part ways with their best players in January with roughly still half the season to go. The majority of players are not available, and those who are might not be an upgrade over what you have as a top club. It's rather a time for adjustments, not a time for building foundations. The the window where we saw all that ruckus with Andy Carroll and Luis Suarez and most of all Fernando Torres, that's rather the exception, not the rule for a January. So if you're in the middle of an injury crisis, maybe you can find some alternatives. It's rather for that, but blockbuster deals aren't really a January thing, unfortunately.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think I agree with that. And I think another reason is the fact that players are now becoming, in quote, too expensive. I mean, I genuinely think if Aston Villa maybe put a 30 to 35 million price tag on Duran, I think Premier League clubs will have been happy to maybe go for him, for instance. But when they put in a 70 or 75 million price tag for a backup striker, then it puts him out of reach from for any club, literally. So I think clubs are starting to overprice their players. Evan Ferguson is being quoted for £100 million, which is ridiculous as well. He ended up going on a loan deal and stuff like that. So I think clubs are being more careful also to not break the FFP rules and stuff like that. So yeah, I think there's a decline in the January transfer window, but it doesn't seem to affect Guardiola and
Hmm.
his checkbook apparently. So he's still
It's
splashing the
also
cash easily.
you actually mentioned John Duran, and I feel like that's a bit of a special case because, as you very well put it, no club would have in the Premier League would have paid that sort of money for him. But it's also a problem with the players themselves sometimes, because no player worth their salt at that age who wants to perform and do great things in the sport goes to Saudi Arabia, with all due respect for what they're trying to do over there. But
Yeah,
it's not a climate for performance. You go there towards the end of your career. I can understand someone like Neymar plagued by injuries. I can understand someone like Cristiano Ronaldo in the late autumn of his career. But someone, Duran is what, 21 years old or 22.
yeah.
For someone of his quality, with his age, to go there, it's just not performance conducive.